guys, and welcome back to the Crawl Corner. Here we are once again in this wonderful ranty room for all things Formula E. So, the Tokyo E-Prix has come to a close, round number 1 of the double header here in Japan. And what can be said about that race? It was a wet one, wasn't it? It was really wet. That turn 1, turn 2 complex never dried up, despite the fact the rain stopped like halfway through and there was blowing quite a wind. You could see all the spectators. Fair play to them for staying out there for the length of time that they did, because it looked like it was quite chilly and they looked like they were soaked through to the knickers. So yeah, fair play to the fans for staying out there, enjoying the racing for the first race of the day, of the weekend I should say, at Tokyo. And yeah, provided an exciting race all around. Interesting battles up and down the field, interesting attack mode usage and things, interesting to see how the pit boost worked out as well. Of course, one big beneficiary of the early red flag as well was the race winner, who we'll come to in a moment. So yeah, it just had a little bit of everything, and the racing itself, I felt once again for this season for Formula E, was very solid. So without further ado then, let's take a look at the current Crawl Corner standings then going into this episode. It's on the screen now for you to take a look at. Have a look and see where your favourite driver is, and based on how they went this race in particular, can you see them going up? Can you see them going down? There's a lot to play for, but as you can already see, a pecking order is really emerging now. You can see the drivers who are pretty much out of contention for the championship and the ones that are well in the mix. Ollie Rowland escaping though. He's got nice cushion there, nice cushion at the moment. Can he keep that? Will he lose some? Let's wait and see. But yeah, there's certainly a lot to play for this championship, and I can't wait to get my teeth stuck into this one. So without further ado then, let's kick things off with the race winner then, shall we? The one that did benefit from the early red flag, and that is of course Stoffel Vandoorne in the Maserati. What is it with these last couple of weekends and drivers that haven't won for years suddenly winning? His first win since 2022, and yeah, they had a great strategic gamble. The pit boost isn't able to be used until you've used more than 30% of your battery energy, and then you can top it up an extra 10%. So Vandoorne was the first one to use all his energy, and that was a tactic to get below that percentage that you need to get below, so you're then able to pit. He wanted to be the first to pit. He was the first to pit, and that in the end meant that here he is. Great effort. He ends up winning the bloody race, doesn't he? The red flag, of course, was fantastic timing for him. Literally, he pulled out the pits, did a lap at the back of the field, then the red flag came out for Maxi Gunter's car that broke down and was declared not safe. And that meant that by the time everyone bunched back up again behind the safety car, we had a standing start restart. Everyone else just peeled off into the pit lane. He'd already done his pit boost, and he was at one stage 30 seconds ahead of the next car. In the end, he finished just over 17 seconds ahead of the second place man, which is the biggest winning margin in Formula E history. And this is the kind of gamble that works out sometimes in Formula E. They've added this extra element with the pit boost, and it worked for Vandoorne this time around, but it was a strategic gamble to use all that energy early to be the first to pit. It worked. It worked. Great team strategy there, and Vandoorne drove almost faultlessly. We need to obviously address the fact that qualifying was a write-off as well, so the qualifying doesn't really matter. It was taken as per FP2, free practice 2 grid positions, which not all the drivers really expected that. There were a lot of teams saying that they thought it were going to go on championship order, which we've seen in the past in other series and championships, if qualifying is not able to take part. So I don't really care where anyone qualified this race, it's all about where they finished, and Stoffel Vandoorne did a really good job. However, we have to address the issue that he had at turn 1, where he went wide all on his own, 20 seconds plus ahead of the next car, and then went into turn 2 slightly offline, caught a wet patch and slid and tagged the wall. Lost 5 seconds in that incident. Lucky not to retire from the race. So despite Stoffel Vandoorne winning this race, a great strategic gamble by the Maserati squad and well executed by Vandoorne to get below that percentage early, I'm going to have to give him 8 points. He can't get a perfect 10. I can't fully sing his praises because that almost accident that he had, he did tag the wall. We saw that it was a race-ending incident for Mitch Evans earlier in the race after contact with De Vries. He tagged the same wall in virtually the same place, just a little bit heavier. Could have been race-ending for Vandoorne as well. So that's why it's 8 to Vandoorne. I have to knock a couple off for that error that could have seen him out of the race when he had such a commanding lead. But apart from that, a top job, and great to see Vandoorne back on the top step of the podium. Second place, we come to Oliver Rowland in the Nissan. Once again, Ollie Rowland up here in the podium places, and would have won had it not been for the strategic gamble that Maserati took and paid off for them. Fair play to them for that. Ollie Rowland was then always playing for second best, and second best is exactly what he got. There was nothing else he could have done. As we already mentioned, qualifying was a write-off, but he ended up pole position in theory due to leading the practice 2 session that ended up getting classified as the result. So fair play to him for that as well. And then in the race, just drove really cleanly. He was miles ahead of everyone else. Drove really well up until that first red flag. Another standing start came. Did a great job to maintain his pace in that. He still had 2 attack modes left. He built a gap, took the first attack mode, built a gap, took the second attack mode, and that's exactly how it played out all race long for him. So Ollie Rowland this weekend, he's getting a 9 from me. 9 points. Ollie Rowland, stunning job once again. Doing really, really well in that Nissan car, and he's just walking away with the championship, isn't he? The only car to finish ahead of him is Stoffel Van Dorn, nowhere near the championship contention, so he pulls more points out of the nearest contender. I don't even know who they are now, but there's a massive gap between them, isn't there? So yeah, for Ollie Rowland, it's 9 points to him for that. Great weekend overall once again. Shame he didn't get the win because he fully deserved it this race. Absolutely he did, but they couldn't control what Maserati did. But damage limitation still takes points out of his rivals. 9 to Rowland. Third place, and making once again a habit of the podium finishes, it is Taylor Barnard in the McLaren. What a fantastic effort by Taylor Barnard. Really well done. Once again, a controlled drive, a measured drive. Got himself inside the top 4 with the free practice lap time he did. Again, good effort, and then kept himself within that contention. The pit boosts and the way the attack modes worked out. The second attack mode there, it looked like he could have been vulnerable because he'd used all of his, but there were likes of Mortara and Sebastian Buemi hunted him down. Mortara had an issue with his second attack mode though. Instead of actually charging up to 350 kilowatts, it just didn't bother. He activated it, but it didn't work. And that was costly for Mortara, but beneficial to Barnard, because without that, I think Barnard would have been finishing P4 instead of P3. Not Taylor Barnard's fault though that. He still drove a really solid race, kept himself inside that top 5 throughout most of it. Obviously with the pit boasts and stuff he drops down, but you know what I mean, he was always in that lead gaggle to do whatever they did and was in that position. So yeah, Taylor Barnard this weekend for me, for him. 9 points to him as well. 9 points, really well done, solid job, top effort. Can't really say he did much wrong. I mean, he did have the crash in free practice 1, didn't he? But that was unfortunate, but recovered the weekend well to make sure he had a good position in FP2, which then ended up being the qualifying results, and stayed inside the positions where he qualified, proving it wasn't just a fluke, he had that genuine pace. 9 points to Taylor Barnard. Fourth place, we come to Sebastian Buemi in the revitalised Envision squad. And just a revitalised Sebastian Buemi, really, was the first adopter of the attack modes. Of course, we had a few laps behind the safety car before the race officially got going from a standing start. However, those laps counted as race laps. So at the start, he was the first one to take the attack mode. He took 4 minutes of it, got himself inside the podium places, and that worked out really well for him because he was able to build a gap over the cars around him and behind him, and he only tumbled to around 6th or 7th after being further down the pack to start the race off with, and then got himself in that gaggle. Was a late adopter of the second attack mode though, so he was the first to take the first one of the last to take the last ones, and that worked really well for him. He kept himself in contention when he was in the middle and everyone else was doing what they wanted to do, and at the end there just fell a little bit short. It was 1.1 seconds behind Taylor Barnard at the end there, just as Buemi ran out of attack mode. So yeah, if he'd have maybe done a 2 and a 6, maybe it could have been a different way round, and maybe we could have seen Barnard finishing P4, Buemi P3, something like that, but you just don't know, do you? But Buemi, a great race weekend once again. 2 race weekends in a row, really. I mean, we saw him take victory in Monaco, of course, and then this time around, once again, disappointed he was not to finish on the podium, but still a solid, respectable effort. 8.5 to Sebastian Buemi for me. I think that was a top job by him. Finishing 5th place in the Kiro Race Pro Quo Status Quo. Don't break my heart, my achy breaky heart. It is Dan Tinkton. What a drive. What a drive. Great effort, Dan. Great effort indeed. What a big haul of points for that team that, you know, have adopted a year-old powertrain, a year-old Porsche powertrain, rather than trying to develop their own. They're running on a shoestring budget. You know, they're putting all their faith in their drivers to do what they can, and Dan Tinkton is delivering the goods this year. We think anything inside the top 10 for this team is a good effort. By now, by this sort of peak and performance of the season, I would have said this is when the Kiro cars would start to fade away as the other teams updated their current current software that they had for the new powertrains on board, but it's not the case, is it? It is not the case. Dan Tinctum is getting himself in some strong positions in qualifying, some fantastic positions in the race, and is keeping himself in the mix at all times. Benefited from Mortara's unfortunate error with the attack mode not working, and was able to pip him to the post on the final lap, take a position there, but it would have been P6 anyway without that. So P5 is a nice effort indeed. So for Dan Tinctum, it can't be any less than a perfect 10, can it? One of my drivers of the day so far. In fact, my driver of the day, I'm not going to lie. I think Rowland was impressive. I think Van Dorn was impressive in what he did, but there's just this one driver here that stands out for me, which is Dan Tinctum. Drove maturely, drove wisely, drove smart, knew what was on offer and took what was available. Didn't overdrive it, didn't over defend, didn't do anything silly, just kept himself to himself, did his own race, and it worked out well. 10 points Dan Tinctum for that. P5, great effort for that car, and a welcome haul of points for that team as well. As mentioned, finishing P6 was Eduardo Mortara. After being P5 throughout most of the race, he was hunting down the podium places, or that's what we thought he was going to be doing after running around in P4. Activated the attack mode. The attack mode said it was armed, but it didn't work. Had a derate issue, which means that the car actually doesn't do what it's supposed to do, does the opposite. So in theory he was a little bit slower than he would have been had he not taken the attack mode, but of course he has to take the attack mode, and just this issue, software glitch, where the attack mode wasn't fully adapted and the car drove like a bag of shite for 6 minutes as a result. Instead of going forward and taking a podium place away from Taylor Barnard, he ended up dropping back behind Sebastian Buemi, and then right at the closing stages dropped back behind Dan Tinctum, which is a huge shame really, but still able to finish P6 after a car led him down at the end. Yep, it could have been 15 points, instead it's only 8, but did what he could with the car he was given this weekend. And such a shame, Mortara was unlucky here last year, wasn't he? Got disqualified after just the slightest power overuse in a Mahindra that was really terrible last year. So yeah, the luck doesn't seem to be going his way at Tokyo so far. Let's hope for a better race for the second race. I'm sure you've already all watched that by now, but I haven't as recording because I don't want to get mixed up. So yeah, let's see what happens to Mortara in race number 2, but for now it's 9.5 to Mortara. Really solid job, really top drive, kept himself in the podium contentions, just the car let him down at the end. Next up we come to Antonio Felix da Costa, the first of the Porsches. Wow, oh wow, oh wow. Yeah, Porsche nowhere this weekend, unfortunately. Probably caught out by the fact there was no qualifying, but, you know, whatever. It was P11, wasn't he? P11, P12 on the grid, and then they made no progress through the field. But you've seen other drivers being able to progress through the field. You've seen people in lesser machinery like Dan Tinctum hold on to where they were. I know there was wet weather, I know there was a lot of energy to use, and it wasn't as race critical, so the pace was always fast, but you'd thought these Porsche powertrains with their efficiency would have still shone through. A P7 though, not great at all. It's a solid 7 to Da Costa for me, for him. I don't really think there's much more I can say about his race. It was just very mediocre, very average, and that's why he gets a solid 7. Nothing overly critical of him, but you see the cars ahead and you think, wow, how did he finish behind Dan Tinctum? How did he finish behind a failing Mahindra? How did he finish behind an Envision? You know, it's just crazy, isn't it? I know that's how the race unfolded, but for me, personally, no criticism against Da Costa, but you just expect more from these Porsche powertrains, don't you? And it didn't come good. Solid 7 to Da Costa. Next up is Jean-Eric Vergne in the first of the DS Penske's. Again, not really much could be said about his race. He made a good move on Robin Freitz towards the end of the race, though, while he was in attack mode to get round him in the closing stages, and then that was that, really. That's all we really saw of Vergne, to be honest. Sort of floating round on the fringes of the top 10 throughout most of the race, and here he is finishing there again. Didn't make his way through the field like other drivers did. Buemi, of course, the early adopter of the attack mode first off, got him right in the mix straight away. This time around for Vergne, once again, it's a handful of points. It's better than nothing. A weekend where you could have easily been in the wall. At least he didn't do that, but it's 6.5. 6.5 to Vergne for me, for him. I think that's as good as I can really give him. Again, just another average performance, and teams and drivers that you didn't expect to be further up the front were, and these drivers just fighting for scraps. Next up we come to Robin Fright in the second of the division, so they will be happy that they have had a double point score, but look at where Bohemi is once again and look at where Fright is. Fright's just holding on to a couple of points, his teammate fighting almost for a podium. It's a bit like Monaco, isn't it? Fright's not doing that great a job. Again, it's all circumstance, isn't it? There's so much going on with the pit boosts, how the two attack modes are used, when they're used in the race, how the red flag impacted where he was at that time. But for Robin Fright, it's a 5.5 to Robin Fright. He can thank me for him. Again, though, you just look at where Bohemi was and think, well, you could have done that, and you didn't. So, yeah, Robin Fright, short and sweet really for him. But again, not really much to say about these drivers. We were too busy focusing on the ones up front, who really shouldn't have been up front at times. But yeah, 5.5 to Fright. He can thank me for him. That's that. Looking to pick up the final points paying position, we come to Nick Cassidy in the Jaguar, and the only point that Jaguar scored this race. Wow. 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 Just, there's no words, is there? There is no words at how bad this season has gone and continues to go for the Jaguar squad. 1 point. 1 point. Cassidy has only just had a podium in Monaco, his first one of the season. It is absolutely crazy. What happens to these teams that win the team's championship and then the year after they're absolutely nowhere? Look at Envision. You know, it's crazy. Absolutely crazy. I can't believe it. I cannot believe it. Nick Cassidy crossed the line 11th. De Vries had a 5-second time penalty. He finished 8th in the race, so drops him to outside the points. Without that, Cassidy would have been picking up absolutely nothing at all. So he's thankful to pick up a point, but even then, it's nowhere near good enough, really, is it? It's 5 points to Nick Cassidy. Very average indeed. He was complaining of the rear tyres, just being a different set to the ones they had in practice, and saying that they just didn't feel right. Now, was that overheating? Is there something wrong with the compound? Was there a tyre that wasn't very manufactured well? You just don't know, do you? I know they're all the same compound of tyre. I know they have the same tyre, but depending on the batch numbers that come out, some tyres are just different than others. Clearly wasn't comfortable with the set he had on him, but yeah. Just a big disappointment, really. So Nick Cassidy gets 5 from me. Very average once again. And he can wave bye-bye to the championship hopes this time, because it's just not happening for him, is it? It really isn't. As mentioned, just outside the points, we come to Nick De Vries, finishing P11 in the end after crossing the line P8. His race sort of came undone with the pit boost, didn't it? He was the early adopter of the pit boost, apart from, of course, Stoffel van Dorn, but he was the first to head in once it was next available to them after the red flag. And that didn't look to be the right strategy to gamble for. I think he got stuck in a bit of traffic then, was unable to make his way through, so lost and shuffled down from where he was fighting inside the top 5 to around the P8 area. Crossed the line P8, but then had a 5-second time penalty for, I can't remember if it was failing to follow team instructions or some kind of 5-second penalty infringement. Anyway, I can't remember if it was something to do with the pit stop with the pit boost, or whether it was something daft like him crossing the white line on pit entry or pit exit, something like that anyway, which is a shame, because another 4 points to Mahindra's total would have been nice, but it didn't work out like that, so that was a shame. What could have been a potential podium for both Mahindras didn't quite work out this race, and in the end De Vries missing out on a good haul of points in the end due to a 5-second time penalty, which was unfortunate. But yeah, it's 6 from me for De Vries. Don't want to criticise him too much. Can't quite remember exactly what that penalty was for, if it was a team error or his own error, like speeding in the pit lane or something, but I know it was revolving around the pit boost. But there's so many terms and conditions that apply during that pit boost, isn't there? There's a lot of things that could have been slightly wrong that he could have been penalised for by himself or by the team. So yeah, that's that, unfortunately, for Nick. Shame to see him drop out the points post-race, but that's life, and it's 6 to him. Hope he can bounce back stronger next race. Next up, we come to the first of the Andretti's in Nico Muller. Not much can be said about his race, unfortunately. They know why they were last in qualifying in free practice 2. They were trying a wet setup. They were trying in a wet setup that didn't quite work out. They got caught out in that, didn't have really much luck running. So both Andretti's qualified 21st and 22nd. Not that they're expecting free practice to ever be the qualifying result, but that's how it ended up. So he was always on the back foot from there, unfortunately, was Nico Muller. Climbs his way here to P13. There's not really much more that can be said about that. And yeah, difficult day at the office. Not really any chance for points, unfortunately. And that was that. So it's 6 as well. 6 to Nico Muller. Yeah, That's really all I can say. Next up, finishing on looking for some P13, we come to Pascal Wehrlein. Oh dear, no points at all. Again, caught out by the free practice session becoming a qualifying result, and they were down in like 17th, 18th. But we've seen it before so many times in Formula E where qualifying doesn't really matter. It's all about how you manage your energy, how you manage using the attack modes to get through the field. And with the pit boost option, you know, there was the option to do what Van Dorn did as well. So I'm not really going to have any sympathy for any drivers that didn't try the Van Dorn strategy and the ability to carve the way through the field like Buemi did by using the attack mode first. So yeah, Wehrlein, there was options to do more. Instead, he ends up outside the points and didn't race inside the points really at all, to be honest. So it's four from me for him. The championship slipping away to pretty much impossibility for anyone other than Ollie Rowland. But yeah, it just continues to wipe the floor with everyone, doesn't he, Ollie Rowland? And even if he's winning and taking second places, you know, Pascal Wehrlein still needs to be inside the top 5 to try and damage limitation it. The fact that Ollie Rowland once again picks up 18 points in a race where Wehrlein scores none. Mental stuff indeed. I can see the way things are going at the minute. It's going to be Ollie Rowland first in the championship by a clear mile and Taylor Barnard second, to be honest with you, but we'll wait and see how it pans out for next race. But yeah, for now, 4 points to Wehrlein. Very, very disappointing result once again by the big manufacturer. Next up we come to Sam Bird, collected a 5-second time penalty during the race. I'm not sure if this drops him behind the likes of Nico Muller or Pascal Wehrlein as a result, but either way he wasn't inside the points anyway, so it doesn't really matter where I talk about him. And for Sam Bird, again a 5-second time penalty for failing to follow race instructors' directions. I don't know what that refers to though, unfortunately. Again, maybe crossing the white line on entry or exit of the pit lane, jumping out of his grid spot during the pit boost, going a little bit too soon, I don't know. But either way, it was a 5-second time penalty, and it was for following race directors' instructions on that one. So that means that was a driver error as opposed to potential team error, like I'm not sure it was with De Vries. It's going to be 3 points. 3 points, Sam Bird. He can thank me for all those as well. His teammates on the podium. Sam Bird picking up no points for what seems like the whole of eternity. At the minute, just washed up. Gone. McLaren finished at the end of this season. I've no doubt the team will remain on the grid in some other form. Some other guys will purchase it. Maybe another manufacturer. Who knows? Maybe another customer like Kiro or something. Who knows? But at the minute, if that team gets bought out, I'd be hands down keeping Barnard and keeping him to his contracts and whatever he's got signed with McLaren and saying, no lad, I want you. Sam Bird, earliest opportunity I've got to get rid of him, I'd be doing so. 3 to Bird, such a shame. Should have been a champion in Formula E back in the early days, in the early seasons when he was Virgin, and it just didn't happen. So yeah, I feel sorry for him in that sense, but now he's had his time. Next up we come to the second of the Nissans in Norman Nato. That's right, it's Norman Nato in the Nissan. No. Norman Nato in the Nissan. And there we have it. Lotterer of the Week to Norman Nato. That's his 4th now. He gets 1 more, and then after that he will be disqualified. What a shame. What a shame. Lined himself up on the front row alongside his teammate at the start of the race. Well, sorry, P3, wasn't it? But even so, the race pace just went begging, didn't it? He had good pace to start with. Then we had that red flag scenario. Then we had the pit boost. And then he just faded away into obscurity and never made his way back into contention of points. I haven't got a clue what happened. I don't really know why, and to be perfectly honest with you, I'm struggling to care now. Norman Nato, what a character on the grid. It's great to have him, but where is he going? What's he doing? I don't get it. I'm not expecting him to beat Ollie Rowland. I am saying at the moment, Ollie Rowland is like a well-oiled machine. He is programmed to win Formula E races and nothing else. I'm not saying Norman Nato should be at that level, but if he was up there, P3, his teammate on pole, I would have certainly expected Norman Nato to finish no less than top 5. And here he is, down here in the lowly position of P wherever. P nowhere. Crazy, absolutely crazy. So yeah, Lotterer of the Week to Norman Nato. He's 4th of the season. He gets 1 more of those, then he's on a final warning. So he's got 2 more chances this series to not make any more mistakes. Otherwise he will be the first disqualification on this list, which would be a shame. But it's polar opposites to what's happening with his teammate, isn't it? His teammate walking away with the championship. Norman Nato struggling to finish anything other than last. It's crazy, absolutely crazy. Of the Week to Norman Nato. Next up, we come to the first of the Lola Yamaha Apt whatevers they are. Yeah, it is Zane Maloney. Difficult one. You know, I don't think they had the tyre pressures quite right in the car. I was watching an interview from Di Grassi and they said they'd just gone too hot with the tyre pressures. They were expecting it to remain wet the whole race, which it didn't. It dried up rather quickly with the wind and, of course, the rain stopping. So once that dry line started to appear, it meant that their tyres were quickly overheating and they were struggling for anything. It's a shame, really. The Lola Yamahas really didn't have the pace to be doing anything, to be honest with you, anyway, and then that just compounded their result even further. Finish ahead of a handful of cars, but nothing special or spectacular. A Miller 05 to Zane Maloney. 5 points from me for him for what was just an average performance in an average piece of equipment. And behind Zane Maloney is, of course, his teammate. It's Lucas Di Grassi, the second Apt Lola Yamaha Apt, whatever you want to call them. Yeah, again, it's 5. It's 5. It's exactly the same reasons as why I'm giving Zane Maloney. Too high on the tyre pressures. That dry line came in. Tyres overheated. Lost a load of time. Lost a load of pace. And just generally struggled throughout the race anyway. Very much a learning year for the Lola Yamaha squad. And yeah, long may it continue with the learning, I suppose. We've had a couple of wet races under his belt now for that team. They can only get better from here, can't they? Unfortunately for them, though, yet another struggling race for the newest team on the grid. And finishing behind the two Apt Lola Yamahas, we come to David Beckman in the second of the Kiro Quid Pro Quo Status Quo. Don't break my heart, my achy breaky hearts. And there we have it, the first lotterer of the week to David Beckman. Unfortunately for him, I've been giving him quite a lot of sympathy. You know, a difficult car, difficult season, difficult team to be starting his Formula E career off with a team that is running on a shoestring budget and a year-old powertrain. And I've been using that as an excuse for quite a number of races. He has been unlucky with contact at times as well this season. However, this race, there's no excuse for it, is there? Dan Tincton, absolutely stunning performance to get himself a top 5 finish. David Beckman unable to make his way through the field at all and nowhere near close to the points. Yeah, you could say again it's all about the free practice and the fact that qualifying didn't happen, which is why Beckman was further down than Dan Tincton. That's fine, I get that, but no progress was made in a car that was clearly dealing well with the conditions that it were thrown at it and doing well in the hands of Dan Tincton. So yeah, David Beckman, it is his first of the week of the season. I hope he books his ideas up throughout the rest of the season because that car's looking like a points contender regularly in the hands of Dan Tincton, and it would be nice if Beckman was up there to support his teammate so they could get a double points finish soon. But we'll see how next race goes, but for now it's an of the week to David Beckman. Last of the runners, we come to Jake Hughes in the Maserati. Wow, his teammate is finishing first and Jake Hughes is finishing last of the runners. Unfortunately, he had to make an additional pit stop due to something wrong with the car. Don't know what happened. I think he had to change a part of his car in part ferme as well, didn't it? The cars are in part ferme when a red flag comes out, unlike in Formula 1 where tyres are able to be changed, bodywork's able to be changed. So that sent him to the back of the grid anyway, and then I think during the race as well as that, he had to pit again. So it was just a weekend to forget really so far for Jake Hughes. Hopefully next race is better, but he's getting 1 point from me for him, and he can thank me for that 1 point. I've given as much sympathy as I can to Jake. It was nice to see him get a podium earlier on in the season, but yeah, just nothing going well, nothing gelling at the moment. He hasn't had points for quite a while now, and it's a difficult one, isn't it? So yeah, Jake Hughes gets a solitary point from me. No criticism against him really, but yeah, pace wasn't obviously there compared to his teammate, and just problems as always. Problems, as Jonathan Ledyard loved to say. Then we come to the first retirement on this list, which means they were the last to retire in the race, and it is of course Mitch Evans in the second of the Jaguars. If it doesn't rain, it pours, and that's just reminded me, I'm sure De Vries got a 5-second time penalty for the contact with Mitch Evans potentially, so that would jog my memory on that. So yeah, maybe it was De Vries' fault why he ended up with 5 seconds on his own. So yeah, but nonetheless we're talking about Mitch Evans, and his race wasn't going fantastically well, but he could have got himself a few points definitely. 6th to 8th area, something round there, but instead De Vries was coming out of the pits. Mitch Evans was taking the racing line into turn 2. The end of the pit lane and where the turn 2 goes, it nips into 1, contact, spaffed it off into the barriers, rear damage, rear suspension damage, carried on going for a number of laps, then got a gearbox warning telling him to stop the car, so pulled it into the pits and was out of the race. That just sums up their campaign so far this year for Jaguar as a whole. It's 4 points out of maximum 5 that a retirement can score on this list. As you know, that's what I award the drivers that retired out of the race. I don't think it's fair to give them 10 points or anything. So yeah, a maximum of 5 that a retirement can score. Mitch Evans has been awarded 4 for me. Just another race to forget. Maybe next race will be better, but I somehow doubt it the way things are going for Jaguar at the moment. Jesus Christ. Then we come to the next retirement on this list, and the one that caused the red flag is Maxi Gunter. Unfortunately for him, his car failed. He had a power unit issue, or battery unit issue I should say, with that car, which rendered it red, which meant the car was unsafe and was not able to dissipate its charge. Car was potentially live. We had to throw a red flag for that, unfortunately, and then just as the stewards threw the red flag, which they really didn't want to do, you could see that the new race control director was just like, oh, for fuck's sake. You could see he was shaking his head because the car then went green and said, oh, I'm safe, actually, I'm safe. But they did the right thing. There's nothing they can do. A red car needs to be looked at. You need to make sure the drivers are safe, marshals are safe, all the other drivers in the grid are safe, because you don't want to be touching any car that's potentially live. You need to send specialists out there to make sure that the car can be discharged, dissipated, and the driver can get out safely. So, yeah, it was the right thing to do, even though it was an unfortunate circumstance. It really didn't warrant a red flag because the car quickly turned safe. But when that car said it was red and live, potentially, they called the red flag. Maxi Gunter, not his fault at all. Of course, his car broke down. Who knows what could have happened in the race? Of course, the red flag for him meant that Van Dorn had the early pit stop option, which really benefited him. Obviously, without that red flag, that would have never worked out that way and things like that. So it's difficult to say what could have happened to Maxi Gunter's race. But I'm going to give him a full 10 points, really, for what a retirement can give, which is 5. So he's getting a full 5. I'm not giving him full 10. He thought I was doing that then. No, he's getting the full maximum of 5 points, which I can give a retirement. Very difficult race to judge, as already mentioned, with so many other drivers. There wasn't a proper qualifying session. Where he ended up probably wasn't representative as where he could have qualified, and then his car broke down. Not his fault. 5 to Gunter, which is a maximum a retirement can score. Last but by no means least, we come to Jake Dennis, the disqualified driver in the race, unfortunately. They tried to do something or what they thought was clever. So we'd had the red flag scenario. Jake Dennis was one of the couple of other drivers that had then got into the zone where they were able to pit for pit boost. They'd fallen below the percentage required to give themselves a little bit of juice. As everyone else was parking up and driving to the grid, Jay Dennis thought, I'll have a cheeky pit stop here, lads. I'm going to pull into the pits and charge up while they're all on the grid, which the team did do. And of course, he was instructed by the team to do that. It wasn't Jake Dennis's idea. The team told him to do that. And there was some confusion in the commentary box about, oh, can you do that? Could you not do that? And everyone was like, well, it's behind safety car in theory, so the race is live again and you can charge your car up during safety car. But as it was, apparently the pit lane is closed when there's the standing start. And after a red flag procedure, unless your car's breaking down, obviously, then you get an exception to the rule. But you're not able to come in and charge. So he was served a black flag. Had that not happened, he'd have been on for P2 this race, which is a huge shame. It would have been certainly turned his fortune around from lining up at the back of the grid and carving his way through. But rules are rules. That's that. They took a gamble and failed. That's one of those things. So unfortunate for Jake Dennis. And it's 4.5 from me for him. For what he did this race, out of maximum of 5, a retirement / disqualification can score. 4.5 to Jake Dennis. So everything, guys, those were the runners and riders of round number 1 here at Tokyo. Let me down in the comment section, just any drivers too high, any too low. The updated standings with the scores I've just awarded are on the screen now for you to take a look at. Have a look and see where your favourite driver is right now. And as always, Ollie Rowland walking away with the championship. But look who is in P2 now. Look who is there. Dan Tinkton. What a stunning season he's having for the Kiro Pro squad. And fully deserving of being there up inside those top 2 positions. Like I said, quite a big gap to Rowland like it is in real life, really. But one mistake on the crawl room. You know, if someone does something really silly, I do chuck minus points out at them. And I will come down on them heavily. So if Rowland keeps a clean slate at the minute, he's looking favourite for the Formula E title. However, right now, based on where we are, it looks like he's going to be walking away with it. As always, you know the pecking order, and a look at Norman Nato. Really, really, really needs to book his ideas up, and soon. Cannot be affording any more of the weeks. If he gets one more, then that's it. He's on a final warning, and then he will be disqualified, which is crazy. A massive thanks as always goes out to Joseph Willows of JW97, JW Talks Motorsport channel, of course, here on YouTube. Without him, this series would be more pointless than it already is. Keeping a track of the scores for me, keeping the driver icons in the corner of the screen for me as well. He's done all of that for me, and thank you so much, buddy. It's a great asset. Thank you so, so much for helping me out with this series, and for making it less pointless than it already is. So I will see you all again tomorrow at 6 PM for the next one. Apologies for the delay in getting this video out. I've been at a wedding, but I'm back and I'm trying to get back on track with things. So yeah, apologies that there's been a couple of days delay to when it's usually out. But of course I have to prioritise my F1 video, and then these unfortunately have to come second, but I've tried to get them out as quickly and as early as I can. Thank you so, so much for watching, guys, and as always, much love.